Jake Murphy wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished fixing the air filter in Section 12. The space station was huge, with dozens of levels and hundreds of rooms. He had been working here for 6 months now, fixing broken things and keeping the machines running. It was not the most exciting job, but he liked it. The pay was good and he got to work alone most of the time. The station was called Harmony, and it was home to many different alien species. They all worked together to study dangerous creatures from across the galaxy. Jake was one of only 5 humans on the station. Most of the other workers were aliens with names he could barely say. Some looked like giant bugs, others like walking rocks, and a few looked almost human but with strange colored skin. Jake packed his tools into his bag and started walking toward the main elevator. He always talked to himself while he worked. It was a habit he had since he was a kid. Well, that filter should work for another few months, he said to no one. These alien machines are pretty good, but they still break just like human stuff. The elevator doors opened and Dr. Vera Constantine stepped out. She was a Zeltharian, which meant she looked like a tall, thin person with 4 arms and big bug eyes. Her skin was green and shiny, and she always wore a white lab coat. Jake had seen her around the station but had never really talked to her. "Excuse me," she said in her clicking voice. "You are Jake Murphy, the human maintenance worker, correct?" "Yeah, that's me," Jake said. "Is something broken in your lab?" Dr. Constantine's 4 hands moved nervously. "Not exactly. I have a problem, and I need help. Are you busy right now?" Jake looked at his work schedule on his tablet. "I have a few more repairs to do, but nothing urgent." "What do you need?" "I need someone to watch something for me," she said. "It should be very simple. Just sit in a room and make sure nothing changes." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Watch what exactly?" Dr. Constantine started walking, and Jake followed her. They went down 3 levels to the research section of the station. This area was much more secure, with thick doors and warning signs everywhere. Jake had never been down here before. "We have captured a creature," Dr. Constantine explained as they walked. "It is from a planet called Kethvar. The creature is called a shadow maw. It is very young, so it is not dangerous right now." "What does it look like?" Jake asked. "It is hard to describe," she said. "Imagine a cat, but much bigger, with 6 legs and very sharp teeth. When they grow up, they become very dangerous. They can kill many beings before anyone can stop them." They stopped at a heavy metal door. Dr. Constantine put her hand on a scanner and the door opened. Inside was a small room with chairs and a big window. Through the window, Jake could see another room with a strange creature lying on the floor. The creature was about the size of a large dog. It had black fur with silver spots, 6 legs, and a long tail. Its head was bigger than a normal animal's head with a wide mouth full of small, sharp teeth. It was sleeping, breathing slowly and peacefully. "It looks kinda cute," Jake said. Dr. Constantine made a sound that might have been laughing. "Do not let its appearance fool you. Even young ones like this can be dangerous. In 3 days I must attend an emergency meeting on the other side of the station. It will take all day. I need someone to sit here and watch the creature. What am I supposed to do if something happens?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Do not go into the room with it. Do not touch the controls, just watch through the window. If anything changes, call security immediately. The creature is sedated, so it should sleep the whole time." Jake looked at the sleeping creature again. It did not look scary to him. It looked lonely. "Why can't one of your science people do it? Everyone else is busy with their own projects. This meeting came up suddenly, and I cannot reschedule it. You are the only person available who is not needed elsewhere." Jake thought for a moment. The job sounded easy enough, and it would be a nice change from fixing broken machines all day. "Okay, I can do it. What time do you need me here?" 8 in the morning, 3 days from now. The creature should sleep until evening. Just make sure it stays in the containment room and call security if anything seems wrong." Dr. Constantine showed Jake how to use the communication system and where the emergency buttons were. She explained that the creature was behind a special barrier that it could not break through even if it woke up. The room had its own air system and was completely secure. "One more thing. she said as they prepared to leave. Do not try to communicate with the creature. Do not make noise or sudden movements. These creatures are very smart even when they are young. We do not want it to become interested in you. Jake nodded. Got it, just sit quietly and watch. 3 days later, Jake arrived at the research level with a cup of coffee and a book. He had never babysat an alien creature before, but he figured it would be like watching any sleeping animal. He settled into a comfortable chair and looked through the window. The shadow maw was still sleeping in the same position. Its chest rose and fell slowly, and occasionally its ears would twitch. Jake opened his book and started reading, glancing up every few minutes to check on the creature. After about an hour, the creature started making small sounds, not growling or roaring, but soft whimpering noises like a puppy having a bad dream. Jake put down his book and watched more carefully. The creature's legs were moving slightly, as if it was trying to run. The whimpering got a little louder, and Jake could see that it was breathing faster. It seemed scared or upset about something. Hey, Jake said softly, even though he remembered Dr. Constantine's warning about not making noise. Hey there, buddy, you're okay. The creature's ears stopped twitching and its breathing slowed down a bit. Jake kept talking in a quiet, gentle voice. You're having a bad dream, aren't you? It's okay. You're safe here. The whimpering stopped completely. The creature's breathing became normal again, deep and peaceful. Jake smiled and sat back in his chair. There you go. Much better. For the rest of the morning, whenever the creature seemed restless, Jake would talk to it quietly until it calmed down. He found himself enjoying the company, even though the creature was asleep. It reminded him of taking care of his neighbor's dog when he was younger. Around noon, the creature opened one large, bright yellow eye. Jake froze, remembering the warnings about how dangerous these creatures could be. The eye looked around the room, then focused on Jake through the window. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Jake expected the creature to roar or try to attack the barrier. Instead, it just looked at him with what seemed like curiosity. Jake found himself speaking without thinking. Hey there, buddy, he said in the same gentle voice he had been using all morning. You're okay, just go back to sleep. The creature blinked its large eye once, then closed it and settled back into peaceful sleep. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The rest of the day passed quietly, and when Dr. Constantine returned that evening, she found both Jake and the creature exactly as she had left them. Any problems? She asked. Nope, Jake said, gathering his things. Slept, like a baby all day. Jake went back to his normal work routine the next day. He fixed a broken water pump on level 7, replaced some lights in the cafeteria, and cleaned the filters in the main air system. But he kept thinking about the creature he had watched. Something about those big yellow eyes stayed in his mind. 3 days later, Dr. Constantine found Jake in the main hallway. She looked worried and tired. Her 4 hands were moving more than usual, which Jake had learned meant she was upset about something. Jake Murphy, she called out. I need to speak with you. Jake stopped and turned around. What's wrong, Doc? Did I break something in your lab? No, it is about the creature you watched, the Shadow Maw. It has not eaten anything since you left. Jake frowned. What do you mean it hasn't eaten? That was 3 days ago. Exactly. We have tried everything. Different foods, changing the temperature, playing sounds from its home planet. Nothing works. It just lies there and will not eat. Dr. Constantine led Jake back down to the research level. Through the observation window, Jake could see the Shadow Maw lying in the corner of its room. It looked smaller than before, and its black fur seemed dull. Its head was resting on its front paws, and it was not moving much. It looks sick, Jake said. We ran medical scans. Physically, it is fine. But it is refusing all food. If this continues, it will die within a week. Jake stared at the creature through the window. As he watched, the Shadow Maw lifted its head and looked directly at him. Its yellow eyes seemed brighter than before, and it made a soft sound that was almost like a purr. Did you see that? Jake asked. Dr. Constantine looked through the window. The creature was still looking at Jake, and now it was sitting up. Its tail was moving slightly, sweeping back and forth across the floor. This is very strange, Dr. Constantine said. It has not moved that much in days. Just then, Commander Lisa Hayes arrived. She was the head of security for the station, a tall woman with short brown hair and a serious face. She always wore her blue security uniform and carried a weapon at her side. "Dr. Constantine," she said, "I heard you called for me. What's the emergency?" "The Shadow Maw is not eating," Dr. Constantine explained. "But watch what happens when Jake is here." Commander Hayes looked through the window. The creature was now standing up, all 6 legs steady beneath it. It walked closer to the window and sat down, looking directly at Jake. It made that purring sound again, louder this time. "That thing is purring?" Commander Hayes asked. "I thought these creatures were supposed to be dangerous." "They are," Dr. Constantine said. "A full-grown Shadow Maw can tear through metal doors. Their purr is usually heard right before they attack. Something." Jake stepped closer to the window. The creature's purr got louder and it tilted its head to one side like a curious dog. "It doesn't look like it wants to attack anything," Jake said. "It looks happy to see me." "This is impossible," Dr. Constantine muttered. "These creatures do not form emotional attachments. They are pure predators." Commander Hayes crossed her arms. "What exactly happened when you were watching it, Jake?" Jake told them about the creature's bad dreams and how he had talked to it to calm it down. He mentioned the moment when it opened its eye and looked at him. Both women listened carefully. "You talked to it?" Dr. Constantine asked, her bug eyes getting bigger. "I specifically told you not to communicate with it." "I know, but it seemed scared. I just wanted to help." Dr. Constantine started pacing around the room with all 4 arms waving. "This is a disaster. The creature has imprinted on you. It thinks you are its parent." "Its parent?" Jake looked back at the creature, who was still watching him through the window. "But I'm human, it's an alien." "Species does not matter for imprinting," Dr. Constantine explained. "Young creatures bond with whoever takes care of them first." "But this has never happened between a human and a Shadow Maw before." Commander Hayes looked worried. "How dangerous is this situation?" "Very dangerous. As the creature grows, it will become more protective of Jake. Shadow Maws are extremely territorial about their family members. It could attack anyone who gets too close to him." Jake felt bad about causing problems, but he also felt sorry for the creature. "Can we try feeding it while I'm here? Maybe it will eat if it feels safe." Dr. Constantine thought for a moment. "It might work, but you must stay on this side of the barrier. Do not go into the containment room under any circumstances." She left and came back with a bowl of what looked like raw meat. The Shadow Maw had been lying back down, but when it saw Dr. Constantine, it stood up again and started making a low growling sound. "It does not like me," Dr. Constantine said. "Watch what happens when I try to give it food." She opened a small slot in the wall and pushed the bowl through. The creature backed away from the food and continued growling. It would not go near the bowl while Dr. Constantine was in the room. "Now you try," she said to Jake. Jake stepped up to the window. Immediately, the creature stopped growling and started purring again. It walked over to the food bowl, picked it up with its teeth and brought it closer to the window where Jake was standing. Then it began eating, looking up at Jake every few bites as if to make sure he was still there. "Unbelievable," Commander Hayes said. Over the next hour, the creature ate everything in the bowl. It seemed much more energetic afterward, walking around its room and playing with a ball that Dr. Constantine had given it weeks ago. "The problem is solved for now," Dr. Constantine said. "But this creates bigger problems. The creature is growing faster than normal. Look at it compared to 3 days ago." Jake looked carefully. The creature did seem bigger. When he first saw it, it was about the size of a large dog. Now it looked more like a small horse. "How big do these things get?" Jake asked. "Adult Shadow Maws are about 12 feet tall," Commander Hayes answered. "They weigh as much as a small car." Jake swallowed hard. "And it thinks I'm its dad?" "Father, protector, pack leader," Dr. Constantine said. "The relationship will only get stronger as it grows. Soon it will not tolerate being separated from you for long periods." As if to prove her point, the creature suddenly ran to the window and pressed its face against the barrier. It was looking directly at Jake and making soft whimpering sounds. "I think it wants me to stay," Jake said. "This is becoming a serious problem," Commander Hayes said. "What happens when that thing gets big enough to break through the barrier? What happens if it decides someone is threatening Jake?" Dr. Constantine shook her head. "I do not know. This situation has never happened before. We need to contact the Galactic Research Council for advice." Jake looked at the creature who was still pressed against the window. Its big yellow eyes looked sad and worried. "What if we don't tell them right away? Maybe I could spend some time with it each day just until we figure out what to do." "Absolutely not," Commander Hayes said. "It's too dangerous." But even as she spoke, the creature started making that whimpering sound again. It was louder this time, almost like crying. Other creatures in nearby labs began making noise in response, clearly disturbed by the sound. "The other specimens are getting agitated," Dr. Constantine observed. "The Shadow Maw's distress is affecting them." Jake made a decision. He sat down in the chair facing the window and started talking to the creature in the same gentle voice he had used before. "Hey buddy, it's okay. I'm right here, you don't need to be scared." The whimpering stopped immediately. The creature sat down too, mirroring Jake's position. It placed one large paw against the barrier, right where Jake's hand would be if he pressed it against the window. The other animals in the lab became quiet again. Commander Hayes and Dr. Constantine looked at each other. Both of them realized that this situation was much more complicated than they had first thought. The human and the alien predator had formed a bond that neither of them understood, and breaking that bond might be impossible. "I will contact the council tomorrow," Dr. Constantine said quietly. "But for tonight, perhaps Jake should stay here a little longer." Jake smiled and continued talking to his unexpected alien friend, not knowing that their unusual family was about to cause problems throughout the entire galaxy. 2 weeks had passed since Jake started spending time with the Shadow Maw every day. The creature had grown much bigger, now about the size of a pony. Its black fur was shinier, and its yellow eyes were brighter. Jake had started calling it Buddy, though he never said the name out loud in front of the scientists. Jake had developed a routine. Every morning before work, he would sit with Buddy for an hour. During his lunch break, he would come back and eat his sandwich while Buddy ate its meal. In the evening, he would read books out loud to the creature through the barrier. Buddy seemed to enjoy the sound of Jake's voice and would lie down peacefully while Jake read. Dr. Constantine was not happy about the arrangement, but she had to admit that Buddy was healthier and calmer than any Shadow Maw in their research records. Commander Hayes still worried about safety, but nothing bad had happened so far. On Tuesday morning, Jake arrived at the lab as usual. Buddy was waiting by the window, tail moving back and forth with excitement. Jake sat down and started telling Buddy about his plans for the day. "I have to fix the heating system on level 4 today," Jake said. "Some of the Vorthak engineers are complaining that their rooms are too cold. You know how those crystal people are about temperature." Buddy tilted its head, listening carefully. It always seemed to understand what Jake was saying, even though it could not talk back. Dr. Constantine came into the observation room carrying her tablet and looking worried. "Jake, I need to do some maintenance on the containment system today. The barrier needs to be recalibrated." "Will Buddy be okay?" Jake asked. "The creature will be fine. The barrier will only be down for a few seconds while the system resets. But you should leave now. I cannot do this work with you here." Jake did not want to leave, but he understood. He pressed his hand against the window, and Buddy pressed its paw against the same spot on the other side. "I'll see you at lunch, okay, Buddy?" Buddy made a soft purring sound, which Jake had learned meant the creature was happy. Jake went to level 4 to work on the heating system. It was a complicated job that required him to crawl through narrow maintenance tunnels. He had been working for about 2 hours when he heard loud alarms going off throughout the station. The emergency lights started flashing red, and a voice came over the communication system. "All personnel report to emergency stations. We have a containment breach in the research level. This is not a drill." Jake's heart started beating fast. He dropped his tools and ran toward the nearest elevator. The containment breach had to be Buddy. Something had gone wrong with the maintenance work. When he reached the research level, he found chaos. Security guards were running everywhere with weapons drawn. Scientists were evacuating their labs. Commander Hayes was shouting orders into her radio. Jake ran to Dr. Constantine, who was standing outside the observation room looking terrified. "What happened?" he asked. "The power fluctuated during the recalibration," she said, her forehands shaking. The barrier was down for almost 30 seconds instead of a few seconds. The creature escaped into the ventilation system. Jake looked through the window. The containment room was empty except for a large hole in the air vent near the ceiling. The metal around the hole looked like it had been torn apart by something very strong. "Where is Buddy now?" Jake asked. "We do not know. It could be anywhere in the station. These vents connect to every level." Commander Hayes came over to them. Her face was grim. "Jake, I need you to go to the safe room on level 1. This creature is extremely dangerous now that it's free." "But I can help find him," Jake said. "He won't hurt me." "We don't know that for sure," Commander Hayes replied. "A scared animal can attack anyone, even someone it likes. You're going to the safe room, and that's an order." 2 security guards escorted Jake to the safe room, which was a small space with thick walls and no windows. Jake paced back and forth, worried about Buddy. He could hear people running in the hallways and voices shouting over the radio. After an hour, the sounds changed. Instead of organized searching, Jake heard crashes and banging noises. Someone was screaming. Then there was the sound of metal being torn apart. Jake could not stay in the safe room any longer. When the guards were distracted by a report from their radios, he slipped out through the door. The hallways were empty now. Everyone had either evacuated or was hiding. Jake could hear strange sounds coming from the maintenance areas. He knew the station better than anyone else because of his job, so he decided to use the service tunnels to look for Buddy. He crawled through a narrow tunnel that led toward the research level. As he moved, he could hear something large moving through the main ventilation shafts above him. Every few minutes there would be a loud bang or the sound of metal being bent. Jake stopped and listened carefully. Mixed in with the sounds of destruction, he could hear something else. It was a sound he recognized from the times when Buddy had bad dreams. The creature was making distressed whimpering noises. "Buddy," Jake called softly into the tunnel. "Buddy, it's me. Where are you?" The whimpering got louder and Jake heard heavy footsteps moving toward his voice. He followed the sound through the tunnels until he reached a large maintenance room filled with pipes and electrical equipment. Buddy was there, but he looked very different. The creature was now almost as big as a horse, with muscles that had not been there before. Its claws were longer and sharper, but the most frightening change was that parts of Buddy's body seemed to fade in and out, like a ghost. Jake remembered Dr. Constantine mentioning that adult shadow moths could phase in and out of normal space. When Buddy saw Jake, the creature immediately ran over to him. But instead of being gentle like before, Buddy knocked Jake down with enthusiasm. The creature was purring so loudly that the sound echoed through the room. "Easy, boy," Jake said, trying to catch his breath. "You're bigger than you used to be." Buddy nuzzled against Jake with its massive head, nearly knocking him over again. The creature was clearly happy to see him, but also very upset about something. Jake noticed that Buddy had cuts and scratches on its fur. "What happened to you? Did someone try to hurt you?" As if answering his question, Buddy moved to stand protectively in front of Jake. The creature's ears were pointed forward, listening for threats. Its body language showed that it was ready to fight anything that came near them. "You're scared," Jake realized. "All those alarms and people with weapons, you didn't understand what was happening." Jake started talking to Buddy in the same calm voice he always used. Slowly, the creature relaxed. The phasing stopped, and Buddy became solid. Again, the purring became softer and more peaceful. "We need to go back," Jake said. "Everyone is worried about you. But you have to promise me you won't hurt anyone." Buddy looked at Jake with those big yellow eyes and made a soft sound that seemed like agreement. Jake stood up and started walking toward the exit of the maintenance room. Buddy followed closely behind him, staying so close that Jake could feel the creature's warm breath on his neck. They walked through the empty hallways toward the research level. Jake kept talking to Buddy, explaining what they were doing and why they needed to go back to the containment room. When they reached the research level, they found Commander Hayes and her security team waiting with weapons ready. Dr. Constantine was there too, looking amazed that Jake had found the creature. "Stay back," Commander Hayes ordered. "That thing could attack at any moment." But Buddy just sat down next to Jake and looked at the people with curious eyes. The creature was calm and peaceful. Nothing like the dangerous predator they had been hunting. "He's not going to hurt anyone," Jake said. "He was just scared and looking for me." Dr. Constantine stepped forward carefully. "How did you find it?" "I heard him calling for me," Jake said. "He was lost and frightened. All he wanted was to find his family." Commander Hayes lowered her weapon slowly. She was staring at Jake and Buddy in amazement. "That creature let you walk right up to it?" "He's not just a creature," Jake said, putting his hand on Buddy's head. "He's my friend." Buddy purred softly and leaned against Jake, proving that the bond between them was stronger than anyone had imagined. The escape had shown everyone on the station that Jake and Buddy were truly family, no matter how different they were. The day after Buddy's escape, the research level was busier than Jake had ever seen it. Scientists from different species were walking around with tablets and scanners, studying everything about what had happened. Commander Hayes had doubled. The security guards and Dr. Constantine looked like she had not slept at all. Jake sat in the observation room with Buddy, who was now too big to fit comfortably in the containment area. The creature had to curl up tightly just to lie down. Buddy seemed confused by all the attention but stayed calm as long as Jake was nearby. "We need a bigger room for him," Jake said to Dr. Constantine. "That is the least of our problems," she replied, looking at her tablet. "The brain scans we took yesterday show something impossible. The creature's neural patterns have changed completely." "What does that mean?" Dr. Constantine showed Jake some pictures on her tablet. They looked like maps of brain activity, with different colors showing different areas. "This is a normal shadow maw brain," she said, pointing to the first picture. "See how most of the activity is in the hunting and survival areas. These creatures think only about food and staying alive." She switched to a different picture. "This is your creature's brain from yesterday. Look at this area here." She pointed to a section that was bright blue. "This is the same brain pattern we see in social animals that live in family groups. And this section," she pointed to a green area, "shows emotional attachment and protective instincts." Jake looked at the pictures, trying to understand. "So, Buddy's brain changed because he bonded with me?" "It is more than bonding," Dr. Constantine said. "The creature's entire brain structure has adapted to form family relationships. This should be impossible. Shadow maws are solitary predators. They do not have the brain parts needed for this kind of emotional connection." Commander Hayes came into the room with a serious expression. "Jake, we have a problem. Word about what happened here has reached the Galactic Council. They're sending representatives to study the situation." "Is that bad?" Jake asked. "It could be," Commander Hayes said. "Some species are very afraid of shadow maws. When they hear that a human has bonded with one, they might think it's some kind of weapon or threat." As if he understood the conversation, Buddy raised his head and looked around the room. The creature seemed to sense that the adults were worried about something. He moved closer to the window where Jake was sitting and made a soft, questioning sound. "It's okay, boy," Jake said. "We're just talking." Dr. Constantine was still studying her tablet. "There is something else. I ran tests on the creature's physical development. It is growing much faster than normal, and its abilities are advancing too." "What kind of abilities?" Commander Hayes asked. "Watch this," Dr. Constantine said. She walked over to a control panel and pressed some buttons. The lights in the containment room started flashing different colors. Buddy looked at the lights for a moment, then did something amazing. Parts of his body began to fade and become transparent, but other parts stayed solid. He was controlling which parts of himself were visible and which parts were not. "Selective phasing," Dr. Constantine explained. "Adult shadow maws can phase their entire body in and out of normal space to avoid attacks. But this creature can phase individual body parts. We have never seen this level of control before." Jake watched in amazement as Buddy made his head fade away while keeping his body solid. then switched it around. The creature seemed to be playing with his new ability, like a child learning a new trick. "He's really smart," Jake said. "Smarter than any Shadow Maw on record," Dr. Constantine agreed. "Intelligence, emotional development, advanced abilities. Everything about this creature is beyond what we thought was possible for its species." 3 days later, the Galactic Council representatives arrived. Jake had never seen so many different aliens in one place. There were tall, thin Zeltharians like Dr. Constantine, large reptilian saurians with thick scales, crystalline vorthax that looked like walking gemstones, and several other species that Jake did not recognize. The leader of the group was a saurian, named Commander Grex. He was almost 8 feet tall with dark green scales and yellow eyes that reminded Jake of Buddy's eyes, but much colder. "Show us this human-bonded predator," Commander Grex said in a deep, rough voice. Dr. Constantine led the group to the observation room. Buddy was lying down, but when he saw all the strangers, he immediately stood up and moved to the window. The creature was clearly protective, positioning himself between the visitors and where he thought Jake was. "Fascinating," said one of the crystalline vorthax. "The creature is exhibiting pack protection behavior, but Shadow Maws do not have pack instincts." Commander Grex studied Buddy through the window. "How large will it grow?" "Based on current development rates, much larger than normal," Dr. Constantine answered. "Perhaps 15 feet tall instead of the usual 12. And it obeys the human." "It is not about obedience," Jake said, speaking up for the first time. "We're family. He doesn't obey me any more than I obey him. We take care of each other. Commander." Grex turned his cold yellow eyes toward Jake. "Family? You are completely different species from different planets. This is not family. This is domestication." "No," Jake said firmly. "Domestication is when you force an animal to do what you want. I never forced Buddy to do anything. He chose to trust me, and I chose to care about him." One of the other representatives, a small blue alien with big ears, stepped forward. "We need to test the limits of this bond. How far does the creature's loyalty extend?" Dr. Constantine looked uncomfortable. "What kind of tests?" "Stress tests," Commander Grex said. "We need to see how the creature reacts when the human is threatened, when they are separated, when the human gives orders." Jake did not like the sound of this. "Buddy doesn't need to be tested. He's not a weapon or a tool." "That is exactly what we need to determine," Commander Grex said. "If humans can control apex predators, that changes the balance of power in the galaxy." Over the next few days, the representatives put Jake and Buddy through various tests. They separated them for hours to see how Buddy would react. The creature became agitated and refused to eat, but he did not become violent. When they reunited, Jake and Buddy, the creature was so happy that he accidentally knocked Jake down again. They tested whether Buddy would attack a threat to Jake. When a security robot was programmed to move toward Jake in a threatening way, Buddy immediately moved between them and made warning sounds. But when Jake told him it was okay, Buddy backed down without fighting. The most important test came when they put Jake in a different room and asked him to call for Buddy. The creature, who was still in the containment area, began using his phasing ability to try to reach Jake. He could phase through some walls but not others, showing that he was learning to control his powers. "Stop the test," Dr. Constantine said when she saw what was happening. "If he phases through the wrong wall, he could damage critical station systems." But Buddy had already figured out which direction Jake's voice was coming from. Instead of breaking through walls, he sat down and began making a series of different sounds. Low purrs, soft whines, and clicking noises that seemed to have patterns. "He is trying to communicate," one of the representatives said in amazement. "The creature is attempting to develop language." When Jake heard Buddy's sounds over the communication system, he began making similar sounds back. Within minutes, they had created a simple way to talk to each other across the distance. Commander Grex watched all of this with growing concern. This is not normal animal behavior. This creature is developing intelligence and abilities far beyond its species because of its contact with the human. "That's what family does," Jake said simply. We help each other grow and become better." The representative from the small blue species looked worried. If one human can cause this much change in an apex predator, what happens when more humans learn to do this? What happens if they bond with even more dangerous creatures? Commander Grex turned to Dr. Constantine. "How many other dangerous species do you have in this research station?" 47 different predator species, she answered quietly. All. The representatives looked at Jake with new expressions. Some seemed amazed, others seemed frightened, and a few seemed angry. Jake realized that his friendship with Buddy had become much bigger than he had ever imagined. "We need to report this to the full Galactic Council immediately," Commander Grex announced. "This situation affects the security of every civilized species in the galaxy." Jake looked through the window at Buddy, who was still making soft communication sounds. The creature trusted him completely, and Jake knew he would do anything to protect his unusual family member. But he was starting to understand that other people saw their friendship as something dangerous rather than something beautiful. 1 week after the representatives finished their tests, Commander Hayes came to find Jake while he was eating lunch with Buddy. Her face looked grim, and she was carrying official papers in her hands. "Jake, I need to talk to you," she said. "It's important." Jake could tell from her voice that something was very wrong. Buddy sensed it too, lifting his massive head and looking alert. The creature was now so big that he barely fit in the containment room, even when lying down. "What's wrong?" Jake asked. Commander Hayes sat down across from him. "The Galactic Council has made a decision about you and Buddy. They've ordered that the creature be destroyed and that you be taken to the capital planet for study." Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. "What? They can't do that. They're afraid," Commander Hayes explained. "They think that humans who can bond with apex predators are too dangerous. They want to study you to understand how you do it, and they want to make sure no other creatures like Buddy exist." Jake looked through the window at Buddy, who was watching them carefully. The creature seemed to understand that they were talking about something serious. "When?" Jake asked quietly. "Tomorrow. Council warships are already surrounding the station. I'm supposed to prepare you for transport and schedule the creature's termination." Jake stood up quickly, making his chair fall over. "No, I won't let them hurt him." "Jake," Commander Hayes said gently, "I don't like this either, but we don't have a choice. If we refuse, they'll take the station by force. There has to be something we can do." Commander Hayes was quiet for a long moment. "There might be one way. If we could prove that Buddy is truly intelligent and not just a trained animal, the Council might consider him a sentient being instead of a creature. Sentient beings have rights under galactic law. How do we prove that?" "I don't know, but you have less than 24 hours to figure it out." Jake spent the rest of the day with Buddy, trying to think of a solution. The creature knew something was wrong and stayed very close to Jake, making worried sounds whenever Jake seemed upset. That evening, Dr. Constantine came to the observation room with her tablet and a sad expression. "Jake, I am sorry about what is happening. The Council's decision is wrong." "You think Buddy is intelligent too, don't you?" Jake asked. "I know he is," she said. "The brain scans show intelligence levels equal to most spacefaring species, but the Council representatives refuse to accept the evidence." Jake had an idea. What if Buddy could show them himself? What if he could prove his intelligence directly to the Council? How would that work? "Let me talk to him. Really talk to him. We've been developing our own way to communicate. Maybe he can understand more than we think." Dr. Constantine looked doubtful but nodded. "It is worth trying." Jake went to the window and began making the soft sounds that he and Buddy had been using to communicate. Buddy immediately came over and started responding with his own sounds. For the next hour, Jake tried to explain the situation to Buddy using their simple language, gestures, and drawings on a tablet that he held up to the window. He showed Buddy pictures of spaceships, other aliens, and tried to make him understand that people wanted to hurt him. Buddy listened carefully, tilting his head and making thoughtful sounds. Then suddenly the creature did something that surprised everyone. He went to the back wall of his room and used his claws to scratch marks into the metal surface. "What is he doing?" Dr. Constantine asked. Jake looked at the marks. They were not random scratches. Buddy had drawn simple pictures. There was a drawing of Jake, a drawing of himself, and drawings of other figures that looked like the aliens who had visited. He's telling a story, Jake realized. He understands what I told him, and he's showing it back to me. Buddy continued scratching marks on the wall. He drew pictures showing himself and Jake together, then pictures showing them being separated. The final drawing showed Jake looking sad and Buddy looking angry. "This is remarkable," Dr. Constantine said. "He not only understands the situation, but he can express complex ideas through visual art." The next morning, Commander Grex and the other council representatives returned to the station. Jake could see through the windows that large warships were floating nearby, ready to enforce the council's decision. "Are you prepared to surrender the creature and come with us?" Commander Grex asked Jake. "I want to show you something first," Jake said. "Buddy has something to tell you." Commander Grex looked annoyed. "We do not have time for more demonstrations." "Please," Dr. Constantine said. "This will only take a few minutes and it might change everything." Reluctantly, the representatives followed them to the observation room. Buddy was waiting by the window, and when he saw the group, he began his demonstration. First, Buddy showed them the pictures he had drawn on the wall. He pointed to each drawing with his claw, making different sounds for each picture. Then he went to the center of the room and began using his phasing ability in new ways. Buddy made parts of his body solid, while other parts became transparent, creating shapes in the air. He formed geometric patterns, mathematical symbols, and even recognizable pictures of the people in the room. "Impossible," whispered one of the representatives. "The creature is demonstrating abstract thinking and artistic expression." But Buddy was not finished. He had saved the most impressive demonstration for last. Using his claws and his phasing ability together, he began creating a three-dimensional map in the air above him. It showed the space station, the surrounding ships, and even the planets in the nearby solar system. Then Buddy looked directly at Commander Grex and began speaking. Not in animal sounds, but in actual words. His voice was rough and strange, but the words were clear. "I am Buddy," he said slowly. "Jake is family. We choose each other." Every alien in the room stepped backward in shock. No one had expected the creature to develop actual speech. Buddy continued, his words getting a little clearer. "I not dangerous. I protect Jake. Jake protect me. This is family." Commander Grex stared at Buddy with his mouth open. "The creature can speak." "I am not creature," Buddy said, his voice stronger now. "I am Buddy. I am person." Jake felt tears in his eyes. His friend had learned to speak just to save their family. One of the smaller aliens stepped forward. "Under galactic law, any being capable of abstract thought, artistic expression, and verbal communication must be considered sentient, Commander." Grex looked around the room, then back at Buddy. "This changes everything. If Buddy is truly sentient, then the Council has no authority to order his destruction." "What about taking Jake for study?" Commander Hayes asked. "That also becomes more complicated," another representative said. "If this bond is truly voluntary between two sentient beings, it falls under family rights protection." Buddy walked over to the window and placed his paw against it. Jake pressed his hand against the same spot on his side. "Family," Buddy said clearly. "Choose family." Commander Grex was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I will recommend to the Council that both Jake Murphy and the sentient being, known as Buddy, be granted special status as the first registered interspecies family unit." 6 months later, Jake was working in a completely different job. Instead of fixing broken machines, he was helping scientists learn how to communicate with dangerous creatures from other worlds. Buddy worked beside him, using his intelligence and abilities to help bridge the gap between species. The station had been converted from a research prison into a center for interspecies cooperation. Other humans had come to learn Jake's methods, and slowly, they were discovering that many creatures thought to be mindless predators were actually intelligent beings who had never been given a chance to show their true nature. Jake and Buddy had their own quarters now, large enough for Buddy's full size and comfortable enough for both of them. In the evenings, they would sit together while Jake read books aloud and Buddy practiced his speaking. "Jake," Buddy said one evening, his voice now almost completely clear. "Yeah, Buddy?" "Thank you for choosing family." Jake smiled and scratched behind Buddy's ears, which the large creature still enjoyed despite his fearsome appearance. "Thank you for choosing me too." Their unusual family had not only survived the galaxy's fears, but had opened the door for other impossible friendships across the stars. Jake had learned that family was not about what species you were born as, but about who you chose to love and protect. And Buddy had learned that even the most dangerous predator could become something gentle and beautiful when surrounded by unconditional love. The galaxy was slowly learning that humans had a special gift for seeing the person inside, every creature, no matter how frightening they might appear to others. And that gift was changing everything.